Thank you for joining me on these discussions. Today, I interview Bishop John Mark Richardson. He's a bishop in the Churches of God in Christ, overseeing over 70 churches, and just a phenomenal guy. He has helped me so much, and I think this is going to help you. Well, good morning. Welcome, Bishop John Richardson. It's so good to have you here today. I just want to thank you. Introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
My name is John Mark Richardson. Mom named me after the Bible, the character John Mark in the Bible. What is there to say? I am a pastor, been pastoring for over 30 some years. I pastor a church in the city of Hawthorne, California, and real diverse community, ethnic diverse. And I am also a jurisdictional bishop in the Church of God in Christ, which is really the largest Pentecostal holiness denomination in the world.
So I want you to be able to give us your experiences as an African American pastor, former police officer, bishop. Like, I've got this theory that Black folks and white folks experience America vastly different. Do you think that this is accurate?
Absolutely. I think I would say yes, but we also experience it similar.
Okay.
So I think there are certain parts of America that is different. Our experiences are different, but I think, I'm one of those persons that believe that human beings, when you pull all of these layers, we're the same, man. We're trying to make it in life. We're trying to love our families. We're trying to do what's right. So that's really my starting point. But then when you start putting all of the layers on, that tends to cause us or separate us in so many ways. So one of the experiences that we know that is different is with the police.
Talk about
we
that.
know, and white folk have been trying to tell us that, oh, no, the police are, they're not biased. But the reality of it is they are. And I think it took the death of that young man laying out in the street with the police officer knee on his neck. It took that experience, in a sense, to wake up a lot of white folk.
Yeah.
That how a lot of African Americans are treated is totally different in the Black community. And the sad part is that a lot of the officers who do that get away with it. And that's the sad part. I mean, I remember as a kid, I'm about to tell you some stories now.
Let's hear it, man.
Just a few stories. We would be walking home from school, and I vividly remember how we would walk home from school. It would be a crowd of us. We're walking home from school. Police would roll up, and it was a way they could turn, with your windshield wipers and with the water that sprays, that goes onto the window.
Yeah.
They would actually turn this.
Okay.
So that when they roll up on us like that, and for them, they were having fun, I guess.
Yeah.
And they would start spraying water on us.
Mm-hmm.
Now, it wasn't a lot of water, but I'm sure they wasn't doing that to white kids.
Yeah.
Okay. I remember seeing so vividly this young man that the police had pulled over with a few of the guys in the car. And they was asking him questions. And he basically was like, I don't really have to answer that question. And when he said that, because we were all standing around, they immediately put him in a chokehold. Just started choking him, because he simply said, I don't have to answer that question.
Right.
And I I don't think that happened, or that's a common occurrence in white America.
Right.
But a lot of times, and I'm not saying that it is a common occurrence in Black America. In other words, that every stop results in something like that. But a lot of Black folk have negative experiences with police, and there's a lot of Black folks who have positive experiences. But what I'm saying is that the Black community have more negative than the white community. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know,
I became a cop, and after all of that, I still became a cop.
Yeah. I've walked to and from school my entire life, and the biggest thing I ever got in trouble for was jaywalking, because I was going to be late for class, and I like ran across the street and I got pulled over for that. I've never had any experience like this, you know, and I've been pulled over a few times, and I have the ability to take the posture of saying, well, what did I do? Like, what are you pulling me over for? And like, you know, put yourself in
we were pulled over at gunpoint. Yeah. I just remember this story too. First year in college. And me and two of my other friends, we went to the picture show. You know, I'm a holiness kid, so back in the day,
you had to sneak into the movies, right?
I could, yeah. That was a sin. So now I'm in college, man. I'm going to the picture show. I'm going bowling. I'm doing some things. I'm living the life, man.
Yeah, maybe you start dancing.
So I go to the picture show, and the movie had already started. So we came out and we said, well, now let's just go bowling. So we got in the car, and it was my car. It was a '68 Dodge Dart, a raggedy car, man. It was just, but it did get me around. And we came out of the picture show, got in my car, because it was parked right in front. And when I got in, started pulling off, I saw the police car pass us, and he made a U-turn. And so I'm driving maybe 30 miles an hour. And all of a sudden, I started seeing police cars coming from everywhere. And then all of a sudden, the lights started flashing. So we pulled over, or I pulled over. And they all had guns pointed at us. Get out the car. Show me your hands. Now, mind you, this is 1979. Show me your hands. And we all had to get out of the car, and they all had their guns pointed at us. And finally, they asked me for my driver's license, and the other guys, and we were all athletes. We were basketball players. So they asked us for driver's license, took out the driver's license, gave it to them. They ran checks. We were just standing there, like basically we had to sit on the curb, and we sat there for probably about 45 minutes while they checked, and they was asking us questions. And then finally, they couldn't find anything on us because there wasn't nothing on us. And we asked them that question. We said, well, what happened? Why did you pull us over like this? Why did you point guns? And their response was, you fit the description. We had got a call that there were some Black people who had robbed the movie theater.
Yeah.
And we had to go, literally. Go ahead.
Every single person I've interviewed, I don't mean to talk over you, but every single person I've interviewed, I've asked them, so what was the reason they pulled you over? I fit the description. A criminal. Because they've criminalized my skin color.
Yeah.
I mean, that's really what everybody's been saying. And when you talk to them, it's, it's just, I'm sorry for that experience. That was horrible. And I still became a cop. I still became a cop. Yeah. You and I started talking more, and I'd go to these Wesleyan Holiness meetings, and Charlottesville happened. And I just want to set up Charlottesville real quick for those people who are kind of like, yeah, I remember that was a couple years ago. It's foggy though. The statue at Virginia Tech of Robert E. Lee was slated to be taken down by, I believe, the city council or the university, one of the two. The Ku Klux Klan had been given a permit to protest. On national media, we saw a torch protest one night, and the torch protest was by white supremacists shouting things like, Jews will not replace us, blood and soil, shouting all sorts of things. And these are quite literally, I mean, you could go Google torch protest Nazi and look at all the old Nazi photos of the Nazi party doing their torch protest, shouting the same exact thing. So this was shocking. The very next day, there's a counter protest, and a white supremacist mowed over an entire group of protesters and killed a woman. And so, you know, obviously the nation was horrified by this. And as a result, you called a meeting and said, hey, we've got to meet to talk about this. Do you remember this?
I remember that.
Yeah.
And
so
you showed up, man.
Yeah. I mean, I was like, I was shocked and horrified. And what I did is I emailed some friends. It was kind of short notice, but I remember it was a smaller gathering because it was, it might have even been a holiday weekend. I can't remember, but right around the time this happened. And we ended up getting in a circle. And you said, you know, I'm interested. This is an open forum. You could ask any question. Nothing's off limits. Go ahead and ask whatever you want. And, but one of the questions that you asked us, the white guys, was, were you surprised by this?
Okay.
Did this shock you? And I just was like, yeah, you know, white supremacists marching on our soil, carrying swastikas, like, this is crazy. I can't believe this happened in America. Like, aren't we beyond this? And then the friend who was with me said the exact same thing. And I said, aren't you guys surprised? And one by one, you guys went around and chuckled a little bit and was like, no, we're not surprised at all.
I remember that moment, man.
The fact that you guys were not shocked by this happening floored me.
Okay.
So why weren't you shocked by this happening?
Because this is, you know, if we're going to do some real talk, this is the history of our nation. We, you know, when you look at history, our nation has allowed that, blinked their eye at it, turned the other way. The truth of the matter is that our nation, there were some good people who founded our nation, but there were some of those individuals, whether we want to embrace it or not, had a view that whites were superior to black folk and that black folks were not co-equal with them. And so this particular mindset allowed for slavery to happen. This mindset allowed for the development of various organizations that could had a free reign to do whatever they wanted to do to a black person. And so the Ku Klux Klan and other organizations just had like, as I said, a license to do whatever they wanted to do. So it didn't surprise us that a particular state or city would allow that kind of marching to take place. We kind of look at it, I kind of look at it as a reinforcement that you know, white folks are supposed to be superior, a reinforcement that you blacks need to stay in your place, a reinforcement to remind everyone of an era that is in the past. And so it didn't surprise us for them to allow the march to take place and allow them to carry Confederate flags and various other things to share a view in a visible way that whites are superior to blacks. And so it didn't surprise us that they allowed the march to happen. And it didn't surprise many of us that when the violence took place, that there was seemingly a siding with them. Their rights have to be protected, freedom of speech, and they have a right to express themselves. What I do find interesting is that when Black folk do that, there is a tendency to try to put that down real quickly.
Yeah.
And so it didn't surprise us because we have seen this. I know I'm taking a long way home
That's okay.
responding to this, but we've seen it. We've seen it on TV. We've seen it in the news. On the news, it's like a normal way of life, so to speak. In certain segments of America, it's like a normal way of life.
Yeah.
So I hope that answers your question.
Well, and I know that you, like, I can't speak for all white people. You probably can't speak for all Black people.
Right, absolutely.
Yeah, but you speak for, like, that you've been elected their jurisdictional leadership. So you speak for some, and you've been a leader in your community for a long time. But for you to say these protests were like a reinforcement of Black people stay in your place, like,
right.
Whether white people didn't see that, you know what I mean? And well, at least I don't think, again, I can't speak for all white people, but I don't think white people saw that as a reinforcement of, stay in your place. I think white people, that just went over our heads altogether because we don't have the experiences that you have.
Okay.
Right? So what I'm wondering is, like, what else in that environment do you think was like a Black people stay in your lane, stay in your place, like, don't come out? Was there anything else that you could think of about that exchange in Charlottesville? I know it was a while ago now.
Well, it was, and one thing I want to emphasize is that is, to me, it is I'm not going to say a small, because I don't know how many feel that way, but that is not all of America.
Mm-hmm.
There is an incredible growing movement, so to speak, of white folks that are just disgusted with that kind of behavior and that kind of mindset. So that's not what happened in Charlottesville, is not a representation of the entire white journey or the white folk here in America. And that's the blessing, that's the joy. But it's still a significant amount of people, especially when on the West Coast, it's a little bit more subtle. When you get to the southern areas, it's kind of visible. This is who we are, and that's just the way it is. So I want to say that I wanted to say that because I'm appreciative of seeing all of the white folks who are at least taking a second look at things and saying that, that's not good, that's not cool. So that part, I just wanted to say that right now. I think Charlottesville, in some way, there were a group of people who felt emboldened because they felt that the political climate had changed and was more conducive to them being able to say again, yeah, you guys had a Black president for 8 years, but we're back in charge.
Yeah, one of the things I did is I went back and I looked on YouTube, and you could just go find these on YouTube. There's interviews with these leaders of the movement in Charlottesville. And there's tons of interviews with them, actually. The media seems like fascinated that these people are out there, so they went and interviewed them.
Uh-huh.
By and large, one of the things that they said is, are the things we've been pushing for years are now official policy of the White House, and so now we feel emboldened to do this. Yeah. I mean, they literally said those words. Yes. And I don't think most white people, white Christians I think if they saw that, they would go like, oh my gosh, like that. No, we don't believe that at all.
Right.
You know, but this is the way they're seeing it. It's like our nationalist, white nationalist ideology is now, you know, in the hands of power.
Sure.
Yeah. Let me ask you a couple of these questions. You and I opened up a really like open dialogue. Like you just allowed me to come to you with all of my questions that I had been like, you know, watch the news media and I'm like, oh man, there's a lot of black on black violence. And
right.
why is there a separate black church and white church? Like I just had all these questions that I just didn't know. And I came to you and you were just sort of this wealth of information. And you just spoke to me like, I know you don't know, and I'm going to help you understand. And it was like so helpful to sit down and talk to you. So I just want to ask you a couple of these questions if you don't mind. Okay. So you see on the news media statistics all the time, right? Like, and I love these statistics. It's like, you know, black people pulled over, and it's like, by and large, it shows that white people are like the most disparaged people ever by the police, right? And you know, there's a lot of things they don't take into account, blah, blah, blah. And I love the Mark Twain quote that says, there's 3 types of lies: lies, damned lies, and statistics. And so you see all these, and I really bought into the like, well, there's just so much black on black violence. And the narrative there obviously is like, well, black people are more violent than white people. Right? That's just the narrative that I'm supposed to get. That's the meta narrative, at least. But I asked you this question, and you gave me a great answer. Do you remember what that is? So why is there black on black violence?
Okay, first of all, and I need to say this. I want to say this to you, and to especially to white America. That question alone, and I don't want you to ever feel like you never can ask me any question, because you can. We're friends.
Yes.
And if I'm having a conversation with another white pastor, my starting point with everyone is that there's good in all of us. And so, you know, until I'm proven wrong about a particular person, that's my starting point. So I can sit down and have that kind of question and exchange with anyone, and especially with you. And it's at a greater level because we are friends. I care about you. I love you. You my guy. You are my guy. And you know, we've had some good moments together. But that question really, off the surface, is kind of like racist in this sense.
I know.
Because it sounds like that we're the only ones that are violent, or we're the only ones that have crime. And when people say, well, why is there so much black on black violence? You know, my comeback is, why is there so much white on white violence? Yeah. And no one answers that question. I mean, if we deal with statistics, I had a friend of mine who is a bishop in the Church of God in Christ. 2 weeks ago, he posted something on his Twitter page. Just blew me away. And this is before me and you even discussed that we were going to sit down and have this conversation. Mm-hmm. But I retweeted it. Oh, good Lord, I'm getting tongue-tied. And he was talking about FBI statistics that show that white people commit 69% of all crime, 67% of rapes, 62% of aggravated assaults, white people, 68% of burglaries, white people, 72% of sex offenses, white people, 71% of drug abuse violations, white people, 82% of DUIs. And there's a list of things that goes on. And this is from the FBI statistics. So when people say, why is there so much black on black violence and why is there so much black on black crime? My question is this, man, white folks is doing the majority of it.
Yeah.
And nobody ever asks a interviewer or a journalist when they ask that question, No one ever say, why is there so much white on white crime? Tell me, why is it that white folks is leading it? The majority of white folks are killed by white folks. The majority of black folks are killed by black folks. The majority of brown folks are killed by brown folks. The majority of Jewish folks are killed by Jewish folks. We're talking about this day and time. Because we're all together, we live in the same communities, we interact with each other. Yes, there will be black on black violence. Yes, there's going to be black on black crime. Okay, so that question alone, when people say that, it makes it seem like Chicago is the only place where there's some killing of a same race. There's in suburbs and all across America, there are white people killing each other every single day.
Yeah. Well, and you know, one of the things that so profoundly impacted me when we were asking this, somebody in your group, it might have been you, but it could have been another pastor, said, why is there so much Chinese on Chinese violence in China? And I just laughed. I was like, oh yeah.
It makes sense.
Yeah, there is a lot of Chinese. I mean, if you're looking at the statistics of race in China, I'm sure the violence against each other is
exactly
Chinese people. And the point at which it could have been you or it could have been somebody else, I don't remember exactly who said it, but the point they were trying to make is look to why Black people all live in the same community. And look to why the communities are not diverse. And it reveals the racism, the systematic racism that caused Black people to be bundled into a community and white people to be in the suburbs or, you know, things like this. And so I thought, let's just attribute that to you because it was really profound for me. So I thought when you said that, it was just super profound to me. And I went, oh, it makes you look back at the entire system.
Well, let me say this. One of the things that I think has brought this question to the forefront is white media.
Okay.
White media always, because, you know, they're about ratings and drama. So they're going to go into the Black communities, and when things happen, they're going to portray it in a certain way. It's sad because the white media has portrayed of Black folks as being violent. They have portrayed people or the Black community as the most violent community that, in other words, it's only happening among us and it's not happening with other folk. So if every day on the news you are seeing incidents that happen only in the Black community, when they talk about drugs, there's a Black face, okay? Yeah. When they talk about rioting, there's a Black face. Now, there was way more white folk rioting in these recent riots. Yeah. Way more white folks breaking windows, looting.
There's tons of video.
Destruction of property. But when they talk about rioting, guess who they show? Us.
Yep.
Okay, so the white media, and when they talk about poor, homeless, there's usually a Black face connected to the story. Now that's white media, that's Hollywood, that is white media that reinforces that Black folk are the poor people, the drug addicts, the most violent. We do all of the rioting. The white media do that every single day on their news. Just look at it. That's why basically I've given up on the main broadcasting news, and I get my stuff on the internet. I'd rather read it.
Yeah.
Okay. Because I just can't stand to look at that stuff because I know what they're doing, and it's sad that the white media portrays us in this way. And I know that that's not really the case. There are more white folk doing crime than there is Black people. Now, I know some of y'all looking at that going to say, oh, no. I'm telling you right now, look at the statistics. Do the research. There is more white folk doing crazy stuff and terrorists and bombing and shooting shooting up schools and killing innocent children, crazy stuff. But when it comes to the most violent and the criminal, it's always us.
Well, and when it's the school shooters and things like this, race is rarely mentioned. So let me throw this logic out there. Like, under your logic right there, the media is showing black people when it comes to homelessness, black people when it comes to crime, black people when it comes to all this horrible stuff. Under that same logic, then every white person should be looked at as a serial killer, right? Because, like, I might look like Jeffrey Dahmer. I might look like Ted Bundy. You know, most serial killers I could think of are white, you know? Like, and yet we don't talk about race when it comes to serial killers, school shooters, things like that. But when it comes to anything else that a black person does, their race is always attached to it.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's just a way that it's reported, and it could be unconscious or it could be very conscious. I don't know.
I believe it's conscious, man. You can't tell me. Hey, the news media, Hollywood, been doing this for a very long time, man. I'm sorry, it's conscious.
Yeah, and it's interesting. There's a very interesting picture. I'll have to pull it up at one point during this interview, but of King Kong, the old King Kong posters, and he's holding, King Kong is leaning off a building holding a blonde white woman, and then there's a Vogue magazine cover that literally is like LeBron James dipping a white woman, and literally they put it up next to each other, and it's like, whoa. Were they trying to imitate this? But yeah, media is very interesting in the way that it portrays black people, white people, the way what it mentions and what it doesn't mention.
Right.
Very fascinating. Well, all right, let's talk for a moment about statues. I don't know if you and I have ever had this conversation, but right now across America, statues are being torn down. And some of them, it's like, let me tell you my hang up with this.
Go ahead.
My hang up with this is this. Tearing down a statue ignores a democratic process that we have in place. Now, the statue may not be right. It might be totally racist and all that stuff. But it ignores the democratic process that we have in place and the ability for the people to speak. And it gives the authority to, a select group of people who are just going to tear it down and do whatever they want. Like, part of my hang up is the democratic process, right? Like, like I just wish that they would go through the proper channels and all that stuff. And I'm like, you can't tear a statue down, All right. Also, some of my other hang up is we go into other countries and tear their statues down. I mean, like Saddam Hussein, that was we tore that statue down, everybody cheered, in America. There was like cheering across America that happened. And so let me just ask you, like, what is your take on the whole statues being taken down? Do you support it? What do you think about it?
I think I share your concerns. Okay. I would like to see a better process.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I'm just, if you're going to tie some ropes to a statue, tie it to the bunker or the bumper of a car and pull it down, that concerns me because where do you stop at?
Yeah.
Okay. Is it possible that you can have some white folk who do the same thing to a black statue that we all cherish? You follow what I'm saying? So yeah. I'm concerned about that. Mm-hmm. I would like to see a process where maybe the population, the community, has an opportunity to vote, and so that if you put it in that particular arena, that it's up to the people who wanted to pull it down and the people who want to keep it up. Let them argue it out. Let them debate about it. Let them try to convince one another and convince the community that the statue have no place here in the public square. So
Yeah.
I'm with you there. I think I share your concerns that to just go and just tear down things without a process,
Yeah.
I'm uncomfortable with that.
Yeah.
Okay,
But, you know,
go ahead.
a certain element too, and I just want to throw this out there. I've heard this argument and I kind of resonate with it. That, you know, I'm kind of divided. I'm like, well, there's some statues that were put up during the Jim Crow era that were literally to keep black people in their place, to threaten
Absolutely.
black
Absolutely.
people. Like, that's the reason why they were put up. But
Yes.
on the other hand, like, I think that there's some valuable teaching that could be taking place around these statues. Like, listen, the public got together and put these up to intimidate people. Like,
Yes.
you know, we can't forget that part of our history, that this is what we did, but maybe it's not the best place to have it in your town square, you know?
Absolutely. Okay. I'm following you. Okay.
Yeah, so maybe it's better to do this like in a museum and to actually change the narrative a little bit and talk
Okay.
a little bit more honestly about why that statue went up.
Yeah, because that statue does convey a message of the mindset during that time, and that's part of our history.
Mm-hmm.
We can't get away from that. And you know, my concern, if you ever really read about what the Confederates stood for, man, it makes me cringe.
Oh yeah.
You know, and so if you're basically trying to glorify this era, you know, and or maybe you wishing that era comes back, you know, that's tough. That's a tough pill for me to swallow.
Yeah.
Okay, that concerns me on, you know, as I move away from the point of everything being a democratic process where we can discuss things openly before we start tearing things down. But then my question to you or to the person who wants to keep it up is why?
Mm-hmm.
Do you feel that you know, black folks are not up to par to white folk, or do you believe in what they fought for and died for the right to enslave black people? You know, so I would need to understand a person's mindset. You know, why do you want something like that up? And can it be possible? Would it be better, like you said, Dave, is to move it to some kind of another something, I don't know,
Yeah.
where people could still look at it, a museum and all of that.
Yeah, like even if they're donated to like a civil rights museum where they would put up who this person was and,
Yeah.
you know, like the controversy surrounding this person and what the statue stood for in the community,
Okay.
would really, like, to me, that makes, I'm a history guy, I'm an educational guy. Like, to me, that makes more sense to put it in its context.
Yes. Okay.
It doesn't make sense to me to go tear down like a statue of Grant, who was gifted a slave and
Mm-hmm.
quickly set him free because he didn't believe in slavery.
Okay.
At least that's my understanding of him.
Okay.
And then went off and fought a war American Civil War to stop slavery. You know, like,
Okay.
it doesn't
Okay.
make sense for me to like have these people just like tear these statues down. I'm like, what did you not pay attention in history class? Like, you just tear down indiscriminate statues now. So anyhow,
But hey, Dave, there's a lot of stuff that wasn't taught in history.
oh, exactly. Well, and I've used this example before too with other interviews. Is you're absolutely right. You know, my kids are taught Black History Month as if Martin Luther King Jr. solved racism. I mean, they came out like, oh, he's a huge hero, and he was, of course.
Yeah.
He's a huge hero. He did this, he did that. You're right, but clearly, the man was shot in the head. You know,
Okay.
he was assassinated very publicly. So, like, you know, he didn't solve racism. He did huge leaps and legislation changed and all that stuff. But the man was like hated in America.
Yeah.
You know, so yeah, history is
And,
not.
and Dave, there was a lot. Trust me, there was still a small percentage of black folks that didn't like him because they felt he was creating more problems than they wanted.
Yeah.
Okay, so he wasn't only hated by the white community. There was some black folk who was like, man, we just want to keep the things the way they are. If he keeps marching, that's going to make life difficult for us. And the white folk going to come after us. And so there were some who didn't want him to be doing what he did. So, yeah.
Black Lives Matter.
Uh-huh.
Let me just set this up.
Can I do this, Dave?
Yeah. Do you want to do that?
Can I do this?
Yeah, you can. Absolutely. Because I believe that Black Lives Matter. I believe that you got, your house is on, there's a house in a community on fire. That house matters. You got to put that fire out. You got to save those people.
Right.
And it's not that we hate all the other houses.
Right.
Spraying water on them would be wasting water. Like you spray water on the burning house. So I believe that in our Christian ethic, to say that Black Lives Matter is to say, like, we need to care for people who are being oppressed.
Yeah.
We need to care for people where there's no justice. And we, as our Christian ethic, like, this is what God calls us to do. Is we don't have to be called to it. It's just what's in the Bible.
Right.
And for whatever reason, the white church primarily wants to say all lives matter. How does that strike you? You're laughing like I set that up a little too.
It's interesting. I started that question. I started thinking about it. As a father, if one of my kids, well, growing up, there were some challenges that they were facing, or there were some needs that they had that was greater than the needs of others. Some kids need a little bit more parenting than others. And because if I turn my attention to that one kid, because they are going through some challenging times in their life, and I come to their aid and their rescue, and I love them, and I maybe I don't take all of the kids to get ice cream. Maybe I just take that kid to get ice cream, or maybe I just take that kid to have lunch and sit down and talk with. It doesn't mean that I don't love the rest of my kids.
Right.
It just means that this particular time, I need to divert some attention and resources to make sure that this particular child feel loved and feel cared about.
Yeah.
And even in our own local churches, many times there are people in our congregation that may need more attention than other members of the congregation. But it doesn't mean that you don't love everybody.
Right.
So when we say Black Lives Matter, we're not saying that no life other than Black Lives Matter. We're basically saying that Black lives do matter, especially in regards to police. Because at an alarming rate, Black folks are dying faster than any other race of people. So the Black Lives Matter movement is saying, okay, we matter. Yeah. We are important. We are just like everybody else. So can we address this issue? If Black lives do matter, can we address the issue that more Black people are dying by the hands of police than other races? It doesn't mean that all lives do matter. Brown lives matter. White lives matter. Everybody's lives matter. But when you have a situation where more Black folks are dying at the hands of police, then we need to address that. We need to divert resources and time and energy. And we need for the police to recognize and say, yes, black folks are important just like white folks, and I need to treat everybody equal. We need that to happen. So I am, the thing that bothered me with the All Lives Matter movement and the Blue Lives Matter movement is it was the motive behind it. Okay, no one in the Black Lives Matters movement was saying that white lives didn't matter or blue lives didn't matter. That's not what they were saying. But to push back against black folks, bringing to the forefront the violence against them by police, they started saying that. They started all of a sudden now blue lives matter and all lives matters. They wasn't saying that before, but when people started saying stop killing us, that's when these slogans came forward. And so that's the problem I have with those particular slogans, is that it's the motive behind it. It's basically to say that those who are part of the Black Lives movement or Black Lives Matter movement is saying that no other lives matter other than black. And that's not what they were saying.
Right. Well,
okay.
And I also have this other problem just as a pastor. Like, all right, so I know, I'm conscious and aware of that I've never posted the hashtag Black Lives Matter or BLM or something like that. And I
did it.
You did it. That's great. That's fine. But I'll tell you, the reason why I haven't is because the political side of, like, there's an organization side that's like got a platform about defunding the police. And then they chant, like I went to a couple rallies and they said, no justice, no peace. And I'm like, well, as a Christian, I'm going to still be peaceful even if there's no justice. Like, so that's like, so I don't agree with that. And there's just a few things like organizational side. I'm like, well, this doesn't, to me, it doesn't match up with my Christian ethic. And I don't, like, I want to support you and I want to support black people. And I know that your life matters, but I also like a lot of other white pastors have a hang up with posting this because of the organization behind it. Does that make sense?
But let me ask you a question. Let me ask you a question, Dave. Dave, let me ask you a question.
Sure.
What is the organization? Because everybody keeps saying like this is some kind of organization where people vote on a president, a vice president, a treasurer, a secretary.
Yeah, yeah, I get what you're saying.
It's not. It's not. It's because if you ask me to identify leaders of the Black Lives Matter movement, I can't. But I do know there are people in my congregation, younger millennials that adhere to that, or I should say adhere to it, but basically say to America that Black Lives Matter. I know that they use the hashtag and they do all of that, but I can't identify any organizational persons. I really just believe it is a slogan and black people agree with it. And that's across wherever part of the country you are at, what your age. It's not an organization.
Well, and see, that's also the challenging part of that, though, is like, I've gone to some of these rallies and I see defund the police, or I see this sort of thing, and like Black Lives Matter people talking with Garcetti about defunding the police and all that and cutting the police. And I'm like, on the other hand of this, like I see that part of it and I'm like, well, police also, put their, aside from what happens, I don't know how to say this. Police also put their lives on the line, and you know this.
I agree, absolutely. I agree. Now let me say this to you. Dave.
Yeah.
There is more white people. It's gonna shock you, man.
Yeah.
There's more white people saying defund the police than black people. See,
I just don't believe in that. I just don't think we had
the sad part is, man, they better not defund the police.
No, I know.
That's crazy talk. That's Looney Tunes. All right. Now, we're not going to defund the police. I would stand out there with a sign holding up like this: "Do not defund the police." Okay, I believe in law enforcement. I believe that 99.999%, okay, I'm gonna get in trouble with this statement. 99.999% police officers are good. Okay, I believe that. Okay, but if you only have a 1% that's bad, or just a small percentage that's bad, man, that's enough to do a lot of damage.
Yeah.
Okay, so if you have 99.999% good pilots, and you only have a small percentage of bad pilots, that's not a good thing. That's not a good thing. So I am not for defunding the police. Absolutely not. But there are more white people who are doing that, and they've hijacked the Black Lives Matter movement, and they're trying to put some of the things, their agenda, and kind of mesh it with what's going on. Black folks basically have argued, Dave. Just stop choking us to death.
Yeah.
Stop choking us to death over small matters or traffic stops and stuff like that. That's what Black folks are upset about. Now all of a sudden we're talking about defunding the police. I'm telling you, man, that's not Black people doing that. That's white folk.
Yeah.
It's white folk with their agenda trying to hijack the Black Lives Matter movement and say we need to defund the police. If you survey the majority of Black folk, they will tell you do not defund the police. Keep the police there. What we want is the police to respect us. What we want is the police to stop choking us out. What we want is the police to take their knee off of our neck. Yeah. That's what we want. We don't have a problem with the police patrolling, arresting people in the Black community who commit crime. We don't have any problem with them taking reports if our homes are broken into, or if someone jaywalk, write them out a ticket. We don't have a problem with that. We just simply want them to treat Black folk with respect.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. That's all.
Sorry about that rant, man.
No, it's
had to get that out my system.
It's good to hear this, because I think if you're watching the media over and over and over again, you're primarily going to hear Black Lives Matter, defund police. And so to me, like, that's where I'm like gun shy over here on my computer thinking like, I can't type this out because I don't want that. I don't want to be pigeonholed and looked at.
So let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
Okay. Now I'm gonna play politics with you now.
Let's do it.
Okay. Donald Trump don't have much to run on right now. He's still with the coronavirus, the racial thing. He doesn't have much to run on.
Okay.
But don't you think, just think about that for a minute. If he's out there saying that we're not going to defund the police, don't you think that is really a political ploy? I see it. When I started first hearing it, I'm saying to myself, man, this is a political ploy. They need something to run on. And what will rile up the white base and the white community when for him to be out there saying that, you know what, they're going to defund the police, they're going to take the money from the police department, and now your communities are not going to be patrolled, and it's going to be crime, going crazy. Everyone's going to be going crazy, and no one's going to be there to defend you. And I think it's a political ploy. Now you may disagree, and I respect you well enough to not have a problem with that. But I think it's a political ploy to start saying now that the Black Lives Matter movement wants to defund the police. They do not.
Well, yeah, I see that, but also, like, I've been to a couple rallies, and it was like, I mean, maybe it's a political ploy there. I don't know, but I've just seen people like with these signs. I've seen people come up and shout, defund the police. So
Okay.
that's what I'm saying.
Okay.
And I could see how like Trump would use that to his political advantage, of course, you know, where he'd flip around and be like, well, of course we don't want to defund the police. We need law and order, blah, blah, blah. Like that's what I would do if I was, you know, trying to keep my seat in the Oval Office, right?
Hey, Dave, listen, I understand. I'm not saying I don't understand.
Well,
I don't understand.
What do you wish white people knew? Like, just all white people. And we're going to be really bad sociologists or really good sociologists. I don't know. And we're just going to generalize everybody. Like, so what do you wish that white people knew?
You know, that question is an interesting question, man. You come up with some good ones, man. You know that. I think what we wish white people knew, and I'm really speaking about my journey, and I think I do speak for people, some people, okay, because we've had discussions before, and some of these kind of questions, maybe not exactly, but some of these kind of questions have come up. I think what Black people, or what we wish all white people knew, was that Black people in general love you. And Black people in general want to coexist with you.
Yeah.
But we want that to be as co-equal.
Yeah, absolutely.
We are not our ancestors. White America, you need to understand that. We are not our ancestors. We're not going to tolerate what happened to our ancestors. That's not going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
We don't think like them. There's no way you're going to ever get me to believe, and I'm speaking personally, that a white person or any color person is better or more superior than who I am.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that I'm better than folk, but there's no way you're going to convince me that you are better than me. Yeah. I am made in the image of God.
There you are.
I am God's child. Mm-hmm. So, you know, we want white people to know that we love them. We want white people to know that we want to coexist, but we have to coexist as co-equal. That's the bottom line. And if we can, if that is a starting place and a starting point, I think we can have, you know, a better America. We can, you know, I was thinking about something. And I'm talking about the way I grew up. So when I see things on the media being portrayed, I'm like, okay, that's not the way I grew up. That's not the life that I grew up as a child. You know, my dad, I had two parents in the home. Mm-hmm. My dad was responsible. He went to work every day. My mom, she cleaned in Palos Verdes, that's the rich area of Southern California. She cleaned white folks' homes. I remember that as a young kid when we had to drop her off at this beautiful mansion. And my mom went in there and she cleaned their home. And then she had to catch the bus back home. Okay. Yeah. But I grew up seeing parents being responsible, working and providing for us. We wasn't rich, but we wasn't poor. Yeah. I saw Black men on our block coming home carrying lunch pails. After a days of work, getting off of the bus, walking down the street, as kids, we're playing in the middle of the street, touch football. By that time they had put light poles there. So we used to play from light pole to light pole. Those were the goal lines. And we used to see and the fathers would say, hey, y'all, you know, and they would speak to us and we would speak back to them. They would go change their clothes then many will come out with their lawnmowers or whatever and start cutting their grass and cleaning up around the house, taking out their trash, bringing it back in, or the next day went after the trash. This is the environment that I grew up in.
Yeah.
And so we were never taught to demean ourselves or to think that the white folk were superior than we were. We were taught to respect people, respect everybody, respect white folk, respect black folks, respect brown folks, who, no matter who they are, we were taught that.
Yeah.
And so even when I went to all white school, I got bused out to Reseda High School, and that was a culture shock for me. I'd never seen that many white folk in all my life. Okay, but it's amazing because those were some wonderful days for me, because I developed friendships and we hung out, and a lot of those friendships still exist today. Some 40-some years later, still have those friends.
Yeah.
Okay. To me, that's what Black people want white folks to know. We love you. We want to coexist with you. We want to be able to interact with you. We understand you have your own unique needs and your own unique settings. We understand that. But we want you to know that we are co-equal. You're not better than us. You're not greater than us. And we are not our ancestors.
Yeah. That's powerful. I'm just going to end with this question. If I heard the white church say this, I would just go, aha, like they get it. What do you wish you would hear from the primarily white church out of the Trayvon Martin, the George Floyd, the Breonna Taylor, all of these? What do you wish you heard from the white community that's the church?
What do I wish that we're going to do better? We're going to find a way to make this thing work.
Yeah.
Even if we have to make some personal sacrifices, we're going to find a way to come together and make this thing work. And I speak especially to my holiness brothers and sisters, those who we call descendants of John Wesley. We're all relatives.
Yeah.
Okay. And I just wish that we could at least be a model to the world. It is sad that those who are part of the holiness movement, the Black folk, are finding more kinship with those who are outside of the holiness movement. You would think that we would find kinship with one another, that we would say to ourselves, yeah, I may have a right to this, but because of the love of Christ and because I've been sanctified, I'm going to make whatever personal sacrifices that is necessary to make sure that my brother and sister, although their skin color may be different, I'm going to make sure that we can come together to do some great things. We don't need a paternal type thing where, I don't need that. And Black folks are not asking for that.
Yeah.
Okay. But what we're simply saying is, let's come together, sit at a table, and try to work this thing out. Let's find some solutions together and say, for the next 5 years, the next 3 years, the next 10 years, that we're going to work to achieve this. We're going to work this to make these changes so that when we go off the scene, now, most of us in the holiness movement, I'm willing to say, in the Church of God in Christ, as well as the Wesleyan Church and other churches, our pastors are probably in their 40s and 50s. I'm sure we've got some young ones, and there may be pastors in your 60s. We don't have that much time left, my friends. We have maybe 5, 10 years, 15 years of ministry left. We may not have that much life left. So what are we going to do with these remaining years? What are we going to do with these remaining days? Do we really want to go out and leave the world and leave to the next generation things that are undone? I think we have a moment to come together and sit down at a table and say, what can we work to? I would love for the leaders of the Wesleyan movement to sit down with their black leaders, the black leaders of the Church of God in Christ and other Wesleyan movements, and say, okay, I know we disagree. I know you all support Trump. Okay, I know you all support Biden, and we understand that. But what can we agree on? Yeah. What are 2 or 3 important things that we can say for the next 3 to 5 years? We're going to work together to change or accomplish so that we can leave something to the next generation that will help them build on what we have done. Let me tell you this right now. There was the holiness movement in the 1800s were some of the leading figures and individuals who fought against slavery. Mm-hmm. They preached against it. Yep. They challenged, they spoke truth to power. And I think there is another moment. I think we have another moment for the holiness movement to step up to the plate and speak truth to power and model to the world what Christ and being a Christian is all about. Amen. Because I will say this to you, Dave, and I believe this wholeheartedly. We are better together. Amen. We are better together, not apart. We're better together.
Amen. Well, Bishop John Mark Richardson, that was a powerful interview. And I just say this, you really know how to wrap one of these things up, my friend. So that is powerful. We are better together. And we just need to remember that and keep going forward with that. And I hope, you know, if I'm sure our leaders in Indianapolis will want to get together with your leaders, but you know, once this coronavirus thing's over, lunch is on me, my friend. You know, you did this, you gave me all your time. Let me buy you and your wife lunch again, and let's get back together and see what you and I could do. So, my friend, I have been the one truly blessed by you being here today, and so thank you so much for your time.
I love you, man. I want you to know that. I love you, man. You're my guy.
I love you too.